Hello, everyone. I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson College Office of Public Relations, and this is The View from the Hill, the podcast of Lindsey Wilson College. Every week during the academic year, The View from the Hill features conversations with some of the people who help create the dynamic living, learning environment that serves the educational needs of every Lindsey Wilson student every day. In this 22nd edition of the 2025 View from the Hill podcast, we'll hear about a recent international service trip that involved Lindsey Wilson's Bonner Scholars Program. For a group of Lindsey Wilson College students, a week of service in Mexico was a life-changing experience. 4 Lindsey Wilson College Bonner Scholars and 2 staff members spent 7 days in May in Chapala, Mexico. That's where they worked with an orphanage that serves the city of about 50,000 people. The trip was part of the students' preparation for their senior year as Bonner Scholars. That's a Lindsey Wilson group dedicated to service learning. During their week in Western Mexico, the group worked with Oak Life School of Orphan Care and Love in Action Center for Children. They helped organize and renovate a bazaar that supports the mission efforts. It was the second consecutive year the Lindsey Wilson Bonner Scholars have worked with the mission groups, and it's part of a relationship that dates back to about 5 years. The trip was led by Kisha Burton. She's Lindsey Wilson's Director of Civic Engagement, Student Leadership, and the Bonner Scholar Program, as well as Yayi Sonnabend. She's Lindsey Wilson's Bonner Assistant Director. Kisha said the 5-year partnership has been a good one, especially because Oak Life has such a strong mission.
And their mission is to educate and empower international collective of orphan caregivers. So they work with directors and advocates to prepare and sustainably and holistically care for abandoned children around the world. So they work with people specifically in Mexico, but also internationally. So they work with administrators to train them on how to better take care of orphanages, but they're also working with missionaries and service groups and collectives to train them on how to work better in orphanages, but also how do you run orphanages better as well.
For the week that you all were down there, what kind of work did you do with them?
Our primary project while we were there was working in a bazaar. So what we would know as a thrift store. We were extending a project that we worked on last year. So last year while we were there, we hung up shelving and did a lot of organizing and sorting of clothing. This year, we expanded on that. And so there's 3 rooms in that thrift store. We completely primered and painted the main primary room. And then there's 2 secondary rooms. So there's a children's room, and then there's just the 3rd room that we called it. And that 3rd room, we completely renovated, added shelves in that room, hung over 700 pieces of clothing. And then the children's room, we added a few more clothes, a few more pieces of furniture in that room. And then every bag of clothing that was stored on premises, we sorted and organized and put and stored away. And so now every time they pull out a bag of clothing to go to hang up, they're able to pull that out and see that it's labeled and dated and that it was organized by Lindsey Wilson. And so they know exactly who it was organized by, what is inside that bag, and it can immediately be hung up and sorted and put away.
So what's the purpose of this trip? Second year you all have made the trip. What's the reason to go down there in the first place?
So the Bonner model is developmental, and that means that by the time a student gets to their senior year, they are stretched and developed in such a way that they are ready to be challenged to the max. They're ready to go and experience a different culture. They're ready to go and experience ultimate diversity and challenge themselves in new ways. So we want to take students internationally in order to experience all of those things. So whenever we're looking at the common commitments that the Bonner program believes in, so the things like diversity, maintaining an international perspective, diversity, community building, those things like that, an international trip is really the ultimate culmination of that. And a partner like Oak Life really is looking at all of those things and building a trip that is meeting all of our needs as well. And so this trip is really the culmination of their time in the program. We put it right in between their junior and senior year. So that way, if they are someone who's graduating early, it still catches catches them in time. It still fits right in the middle of their developmental time in the program. And we stretch them. We stretch their comfort zones. Oftentimes they're going with a very elementary level of Spanish, and we're really going and experiencing a new level of growth.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of memorable moments from the week that you all were there, but what are some that particularly stand out in your mind as you reflect on the impact that this trip had on the Lindsey Wilson students who were there?
I think one of the things that I love about this trip is that we go and we serve with Oak Life School of Orphan Care. But Oak Life School of Orphan Care has a great connection to Love and Action Orphanage. And in Mexico, that's called a Casa Hogar. And their traditional care model in Mexico is nothing like we see in the U.S. And, we talk a lot about like what foster care and things like that look here and the issues, of course, that our system may face. But in Mexico, they are in the very elementary early stages of building something up like that. So Love and Action is a small children's home. They have about 18 to 22 girls at a time. I think when we went, they have 20. And so they are really like the leaders in the field when it comes to orphan care and foster care in Chapala. So we get the honor of getting to serve with Love and Action as well. And so when we went last year, we got to build relationships with the girls that were there, knowing that, we're only there for a week. Some of them might not be there when we come to visit them next year. And even though it's a short-term service trip, our leader, Cameron Talbot, talked about how it's actually really great that the girls get to learn this is what friendship looks like. These are what positive relationships and interactions look like. And it's okay when those friends leave. And sometimes they come back, sometimes they might not. And so getting to see the attachments that we got to form with them the first time that we were there, and how us leaving but coming back didn't dampen their willingness and excitement to build new relationships, even in a short-term capacity with our girls that were new in there for the first time. So we had lots of heartwarming interactions with, even though there was a language barrier, I'm bilingual conversationally. So I was able to do some translating, and the girls just had that were there, both the students that we took and the girls at Love and Action had such a willingness and a desire to get to know one another. What is your favorite color? What is your favorite thing to do? What sports are you interested in? What is it like at your university? And we got to have those conversations across language barriers. We even had the second day that we were there, a few of the girls from Love and Action wanted to come and work in the bazaar with us. And so they were right there digging into bags, sorting clothes, learning how to build furniture. They had great ideas for how we could sort the clothes and where we should put them on the walls and on the racks. And that was really heartwarming to get to work with them. And I think our students really appreciated that as well.
Kisha, what about you? During the whole week you're there must be so many wonderful memories, wonderful moments that you see the Lindsey Wilson students experiencing. But what sort of stands out in your mind as you look back on the week that you all were there?
A specific standout moment for me is one of the afternoons we went to the Malecon, which is the pier there by Lake Chapala. And Cameron Talbot, who is the executive director, and then Kelsey Overall, who is the director of groups and missions. She and Cameron both gave us a really hefty challenge by giving us flyers to hand out there on the pier. And they gave us a list of words at the beginning of the week, a few phrases to practice in Spanish. So that way, when we were there at the pier with these flyers to promote the bazaar and the new renovations and invite people to come out, we could then pass them out to people there at the pier. And so it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge for the students. It was a challenge for me as well. It would be a challenge here in the States to do that in my native language. It was quite a feat. It was quite a mountain to try to climb. But then to do that and then to see our students rise to that occasion, I was very proud of our students. No matter how well they were able to say the phrase or not, you could see the other person on the other side just appreciated their effort. But I was really proud, and I know it was really hard, and I know they all felt really challenged. I felt really challenged. But looking back, it was a moment from the week that really stands out to me.
You're listening to the Lindsey Wilson View from the Hill podcast. I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson Office of Public Relations. We're visiting during this podcast with Kisha Burton. She's Lindsey Wilson's Director of Civic Engagement, Student Leadership, and the Bonner Scholar Program. And we're also talking to Yayi Sonnabend. She's Lindsey Wilson's Bonner Assistant Director. They're recounting the Bonner Scholars' recent service trip to Mexico. And you can find more about that trip on the Lindsey Wilson College Facebook page, where there's a link to the story. Yayi says the academic component of the service trip to Mexico is what makes it extra meaningful and special for the Bonner Scholars.
And there's some great academic connections that we were able to connect with international service. So I'm really proud of our Bonner program model of deep partnerships, but also training people before you go on where you're serving, the population that you're serving with. And over these last two trips, we were able to develop a really great curriculum, some from my own international service experiences, some from the international experiences that Bonner has taken before we partnered with Oak Life. And so for about 6 to 7 weeks before the trip, we were meeting regularly with our seniors to teach them. Here is from Cameron Talbot, the executive director. Here is a little bit about Mexican culture and how it differs from American culture. And here are how American values are perceived when you go abroad. And here are the differences between an individualist culture and a collectivist culture. And so we were able to dive deep into those differences. We talked about what does it mean to be a global citizen and what does it mean to care about the current events that are happening around the world. Why should you be interested, and how does this impact you in your daily life? We learned about ethical service internationally, realizing that when we go to do this service in a different culture, we're not coming with all the answers. We might not even be the most qualified people to be doing this work, but we are often doing hands and feet direct service work. And honestly, they could do it without us, but realizing that the only privilege that we bring into the situation is that we're privileged to be able to be there and to be able to learn from the culture and from the people that we're serving and working with. So having a perspective shift in that way. And then lastly, we learned about how should we talk about this trip with each other? How should we talk about this trip on social media? And what does that ethically look like? And realizing that ultimately the biggest takeaway that we're going to be able to get is that we were able to spend time in a different environment, learning about different people and how they live. When you go internationally, and I'm so proud of our university for having fabulous international opportunities. When you go internationally in a service trip in the way that we did, we got to really be immersed and involved in what the local life would look like. We woke up at the time that people normally would. We ate lunch at 2 p.m., which is when they normally would over there. We were on the same schedule with the girls and when they would go to school and get out of school. And we got to be immersed in a way that you might not normally on any other sort of trip. So I'm really happy for the academic connections that our students were able to bring into this, the work that they did beforehand for the training, and also like the learning and trying a different language that they might not have otherwise. But that is something I think is great to highlight about international service specifically and the way that our Bonner program was able to deliver that for these students.
Kisha, this is also an opportunity for the students to learn more about Mexican culture as well.
Yes. So one of the things that I absolutely love about Oak Life and their model for trips and how they design groups is, as Yayi was mentioning, is how they structure things really intentionally to make sure that there's full immersion for groups whenever they're there in terms of learning about Mexican culture, but also just learning about the deep-rooted history of the area. And there was a few different things that we did while we were there in order to just gain deeper knowledge of Chapala and the community. One of those things was we visited a local train station that had then been converted into a museum. And it's a very cool opportunity to go there because it serves not only as a point of history for the local area, because you can go in and there's a few different exhibits where you can see history throughout the area of transportation. So you can see where the train used to run from Chapala up to Guadalajara and the time frame for that. But then also now it serves as an art exhibit. So there's a few different exhibits that you can see through there. So for Yayi and I, having been there last year, now this year, we were able to see new exhibits this year, which was fun. But then for our students being there, they were able to see a whole history section as well that then talks about this deep-rooted cultural aspect aspect of Chapala and how rooted Lake Chapala is to the area, and how important water is to the area. And so at the end, whenever we were asking students, like, what were some of the things that stood out to you, they were talking about the significance of the water. And all of this is there at this local train station that's been turned into a museum. So it's really cool that Cameron and Kelsey build these opportunities in for us to go and be able to see what is all of this. Because if we were just there for a week and we went and served, that's great. We would go, we would get painting done, we would hang up clothes, but what would we have learned, right? So for them to ingrain these opportunities for us to actually learn about the place that we're staying in for a week ensures that we're doing more than just serving. We're actually learning in the time that we're there as well.
That's Kisha Burton and Yayi Sonnabend of Lindsey Wilson's outstanding Bonner Scholars Program. You can learn more about the Bonner Scholars' recent service trip to Mexico on the Lindsey Wilson College Facebook page. That's where you can find a link to the story. And that's going to do it for this 22nd edition of 2025's View from the Hill. We'll have one more edition this June, then the View from the Hill will take a much-earned summer break. View from the Hill is produced by Shelby Burton. She's Lindsey Wilson's Assistant Director of Public Relations and media producer. And you can tell us what you like or don't like about this podcast by firing off an email to us and send it to news@lindsey.edu. Be sure to put podcast in the subject line. Also be sure to encourage your friends, family members, and neighbors and co-workers to subscribe to A View from the Hill. They can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on the college's YouTube channel. Until our next edition, I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson College Office of Public Relations. Thanks so much for listening. So long, everybody, and have a nice day.